The River Nile is the longest river in the world. Touching parts of 10 countries and draining approximately 10% of Africa's landmass, the River Nile Basin is an environment endowed with a variety of natural resources and rich cultural history.
The Nile environment is host to a spectacular range of ecosystems, from high mountains, tropical forests, woodlands and wetlands in the south to savannas and deserts in the north. It is also home to a great range of flora and fauna. Most importantly, it is home to 160 million people spread in 10 riparian countries who derive a livelihood from its resources.
In spite of its rich endowment, the Nile environment is host to some of the world's poorest nations. High poverty levels, compounded with rapid population growth in the member countries in recent years, has put enormous pressure on the natural resources and ecological systems of the Nile Basin. Adverse environmental threats continue to undermine the efforts of the Nile riparian countries to propagate sustainable economic development in the region. One of the development partners explains the nature and impact of these challenges.
Poverty and conflict in the Nile Basin is the single greatest threat to the environment. And there is no doubt this is an extremely fragile and vulnerable ecosystem. I described it as the longest river in the world and one of the most important rivers in the world, but there's not a lot of water in the river system. It's vulnerable to climate change, vulnerable to desertification, vulnerable to all sorts of degradation because of sedimentation. Even the natural loads are huge.
Every day in Kenya, young girls are defiled mainly by close relatives. Many become pregnant. These girls risk their lives to end the pregnancies.
They say, I wanted to go to school, or I wanted to go to a college or a course, so they wanted to go for further education. Others, because maybe it was a rape. If they were raped, they wouldn't want to carry that baby. Recently I had a girl in the university who said, Ajal, I did it for my mom. Others is because they have disagreed, even in their family. Even the man and the wife, they disagree, and the wife says, I'll get rid of this because it is going to tie me down.
Unfortunately, the poor and the youth are the main victims of restrictive laws that limit access to safe abortion.
In situations of restrictive law as we have in this country, it is the poor people who suffer it. The wealthy, the enlightened can get services within the law because we have the law that states you can have abortion where the life of the mother is threatened.
As we speak today, Kenya has the highest productivity per unit area in the world. We, of course, like all the stakeholders within the tea industry, of course, are regulated by the Tea Board of Kenya. The research projects themselves are designed in such a way as to ensure that stakeholders also participate, what we call participatory research. And some of the research is actually carried out in farmers' fields to ensure that there is uptake of the resultant technologies that come out of those research projects.
The Tea Board of Kenya is implementing innovative and aggressive tea promotion and generic marketing strategies. With 95% of Kenya tea destined for the export market, special promotions targeting this vital market are under implementation.
We have taken membership in international tea associations and tea councils in the leading markets. We participate on an ongoing basis in trade exhibitions, trade missions, trade fairs in the marketplaces, where then we advertise and expose the product and exchange contacts with would-be importers of Kenya tea. We have crafted a partnership through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs where we are working with our embassies in the various markets, and indeed the embassies in these markets act as our liaison with the market, our contacts, and ourselves. And anytime there is an inquiry that comes through online, or through mail, then we respond to that and put the suppliers of tea in contact with the buyers of tea and follow through to ensure that that matures in a trade order.
Month after month, year after year, the Kenya Revenue Authority has been meeting its tax collection targets.
Between financial year 2002-2003 and financial year 2008-2009, KRA more than doubled its tax collection from 201.7 billion shillings to 480.9 billion shillings.
This represents an average annual increase of 15.7%. This impressive record is as a result of a deliberate and strategic reform and modernization program that the tax administrator commenced in 2005.
KRA was created to improve revenue collection for the government in the long term, a vision that has now become a reality. President Mwai Kibaki.
Political independence alone was not enough. The attainment of economic independence must follow for the people to enjoy the benefits of freedom in form of wealth, employment, education, health, and higher standards of living.
Creating an enabling and supportive environment in which corporate entities can achieve high business revenues and facilitating them in the payment of taxes that accrue from the profits has been the high-level goal of KRA in the last few years. KRA implements various strategies to reduce tax evasion. The latest inclusion in this endeavor has been the introduction of marine patrol boats.
KRA 002, this is KRA 001, Captain speaking.
The patrol boats help in strengthening security surveillance by keeping off contraband goods including drugs, arms and weapons.
Since we introduced these boats, now the people, the smugglers have known that we can be able to get to where they thought the Navy could not manage. That is passing between very shallow areas where the canoes and small boats normally pass. We have had seizures of sugar being smuggled in from our neighboring countries, and customed goods, tires, even fish.
All these strategies in the Reform and Modernization Program are implemented to ensure that the government raises the required revenue to meet the social services and development needs of its citizens.
Infrastructure, health, education, rural electrification, water and provision of other social services have been made possible and expanded through the efforts to increase compliance and increase tax revenue collection.
The East Africa Dairy Development Project, EADD, is employing a unique dairy farming approach, the business hub model, aimed at improving dairy production and market access drivers of farmer income. Fred Ogana, the country director of TechnoServe, explains the strategic thinking behind the adoption of this model for the region.
When the industry was liberalized in the early 90s, what happened is that the sector was not particularly ready to handle the surge of milk that will come in from farmers. Unfortunately, at the same time, the main buyer, KCC, went down at that time. And so opened up the whole sector to smallholder traders, hawkers, brokers, middlemen, who did offer a very good service for the farmer because the farmer had no choice. So that really made sense at that point in time. But when we went to look at the value chain, and this is in the late 90s, we found that the farmer was really not benefiting at the end of the day. They were not sure of getting paid on time. In fact, many of them were getting conned by middlemen. And the whole extension support structure collapsed. So they were not getting inputs, they were not getting training, they were not getting information on husbandry and on markets.